Valuable lessons learned from studying Karl Marx. There are those among my friends, cohorts, and peers who seem to believe that I have focused entirely too much on the works and philosophies of Marx and philosophers from the Frankfurt School, and other similarly divisive ideological approaches. Mind you, it is apparent that they have not read my work in its entirety, merely dismissing it outright as it is forcing them to study that which they hate, which, as I have noted, is inherently uncomfortable for most normal people. The fact of the matter is that if you want to determine if something is real or viable, it is necessary to research each and every detail. This does not afford us the opportunity to selectively review the surface and stoically declare that it meets our undiscerning demands. At least, not if we are being intellectually honest. It is imperative that in any subject, every potential perception and perspective be examined, though in fairness, they may not always be obvious. Karl Marx had a delusional, Platonic vision of some utopian iteration of the state, and saw it as capable of being the ultimate arbiter of morality, ethics, and able to determine the rightful place of the polity, along with a healthy critique of the abusive potential of unchecked capitalism, and a host of racist personal rants. Still, the works of Marx do at least provide some valuable insights into the dynamics of power, human behavior, and the organizational nature of both societal structures and market dynamics. One of the critical lessons that can be drawn from his analysis is the inherent instability of systems that operate without adequate checks and balances, whether in economic, social, or political contexts. Marx's observations about the concentration of wealth, the exploitation of labor, and the cyclical crises of capitalism resonate with broader concerns about the unregulated expansion of power and influence in any system, including systems of governance. In the distorted if not delusional view of Marx, the state embodies all that which is good, is inherently infallible, and will quietly fade away into memory at such a time as the polity has attained a similar level of enlightenment as the political state in the dystopian vision according to both Marx and Plato, human nature and history be damned. While a corporation may effectively enslave someone for a period of 2 to 3 decades, even if within the proverbial golden handcuffs, the state not only has a monopoly on force, but the capacity to deprive the polity of its freedoms, and indeed, even of their very lives in times of wars that likely had nothing to do with the people being tasked with fighting, bleeding, and dying on behalf of those who decided war was the best option. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this: you must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. This statement is from James Madison in Federalist Paper No. 51, and reflects Madison's belief in the necessity of government to manage human fallibility while also recognizing that governments themselves must be constrained because they are composed of fallible humans. It emphasizes the dual challenge of creating a government capable of controlling the governed and obliging it to control itself. Madison contended that since humans are neither infallible nor inherently virtuous, there is a need for mechanisms to ensure that power is not abused, and as the Anti-Federalists further contended, such is not the place of government, but of the people or the polity. The people must ultimately be tasked with keeping the government in check, which is a task the people seem to have failed in the greater context. Another critical lesson that can be drawn from the analysis of Karl Marx is the inherent instability of distant, external systems that operate without adequate checks and balances, whether in economic, social, or political contexts. Marx's observations about the concentration of wealth, the exploitation of labor, and the cyclical crises of capitalism resonate with broader concerns about the unregulated expansion of power and influence within any system. Through the lens of Marx's teachings, it becomes apparent that free markets, like free societies, are only sustainable when constrained within localized frameworks. At the local level, markets are more likely to reflect the needs and preferences of the community, allowing for direct accountability and greater adaptability to the unique circumstances of those they serve. Similarly, free societies thrive in small, like-minded communities where shared values and mutual trust can provide the cohesion necessary for effective self-governance, and where the leaders are not only accountable to the people as some faceless mass, but rather accountable to their friends, families, and neighbors. Only by working from within a decentralized framework is it possible to provide an enforceable voice to the people, and to have those in charge held directly to account by the people they profess to serve. Public servants at the national level tend to focus more on serving those that contribute to their individual wealth and power, while proudly declaring themselves to be experts and self-proclaimed dear leaders. They are somehow under the illusion, or delusion, that they are more well-informed and more capable than the general populace. This is true even to the extent that many politicians believe they have some special gift or divine power and the capacity to determine how best the individual may or may not live, work, and thrive within their respective communities. The delusional belief of Marx that these politicians would entirely dismiss human nature and their personal interests, and that an all-powerful state would merely fade away, is perplexing to say the least. Local public servants and even leaders cannot escape their actions at the local level. They are confronted with the direct impact of their decisions anytime they walk out their front door. They are confronted with any discontent regarding their actions anytime they must face their neighbors, go shopping, or otherwise venture into the public square. However, the viability of such localized structures is also contingent upon their integration into a larger, more stable organizational framework that provides certain protections, logistical support, and to a lesser degree, material and financial resources. This larger framework should mitigate the vulnerabilities inherent in small, autonomous, or decentralized systems, ensuring that they are not easily disrupted by external threats or imbalances. Marx's critique of power dynamics highlights the dangers of vacuums within both organizational and market structures. The adage that nature abhors a vacuum is particularly relevant in this context, as the absence of regulation or oversight in free markets often leads to the unchecked accumulation of power by a select few. Without protections to preserve equality and fairness, those with significant economic or political capital can exploit the system to their advantage, perpetuating cycles of oppression and instability. President Eisenhower, or Ike as he seemed to prefer, was keen to warn the people about the rise of the military-industrial complex unduly influencing politicians through funding, and engaging in endless wars that lead only to death and destruction for the polity, while increasing the personal power and wealth of those in positions of power and control. A free society lacking safeguards for individual rights and protections against external aggression is susceptible to domination by those with greater power or resources. This aligns with Marx's critique of capitalist systems, where the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of the bourgeoisie results in the exploitation of the proletariat, though such abuse is even more likely within the inevitably authoritarian political state as envisioned by Marx. Human nature and the fallibility of the human condition further underscore the challenges of maintaining truly free markets and free societies. This situation becomes even more prevalent in the face of distant leadership and regulation. Distant leaders are often overwhelmed by events at the national level and incapable of tackling local challenges within the local context, never mind determining the efficacy or viability of national or singular blanket solutions when implemented at the local level. Marx's materialist conception of history emphasizes the role of economic interests in shaping societal structures, demonstrating how those in positions of power often prioritize their self-interest over collective well-being, even if unintentionally. In the absence of direct accountability, corruption and abuse of power become inevitable, as individuals and corporations seek to consolidate their influence and protect their economic and personal interests. Decentralization allows communities to retain control over their markets and governance while fostering resilience and adaptability, all while retaining the capacity for civic participation and demanding localized accountability of community leaders. Thus, the decentralized system seems to be the most viable solution for preventing the aggregation of power in distant areas lacking any capacity for understanding the local context. At the same time, a modicum of logistical and material support from a centralized structure ensures stability and equity across the larger system, though the centralized powers must be few, well-defined, and have provisions in place to prevent unchecked abuse of the systems. This hybrid approach addresses the limitations of both decentralized and centralized systems, creating a framework that aligns with Marx's critique of aggregative power structures while still accommodating the practical realities of governance and economic coordination for societal success. Informed by both Marxist insights and historical realities, it becomes evident that systemically sustainable human growth and development require a delicate balance between local empowerment and centralized support, more than just from a centralized center for the regulation and control of distant communities. By designing systems that prioritize accountability and adaptability, societies, and more specifically local communities, can mitigate the risks associated with power vacuums, and ensure that both markets and governance structures serve the collective good. This approach recognizes both the complexities of human nature and the need for systemic safeguards to preserve freedom no matter the ism currently in place.
Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below.